Alright, welcome back to the channel. Today we're working on this Yamaha Moto 4. So the story with this four-wheeler is it was sitting in a friend's garage for about 20 years and they didn't want it anymore. It is quite dirty, but this is actually a pretty clean unit in terms of the plastics. I haven't found a single crack in the plastics anywhere. Has the badges and everything. The seat's not even cracked. Still got the original toolkit. Smell the gas. I don't smell anything in there. That's good. It does have a trip odometer. That's it. The choke lever's broken. It's only a two-wheel drive unit, so that kind of stinks, but it has reverse, which is actuated by this deal. In here is the worst part of the whole four-wheeler. It's very corroded. See, this fitting is just corroded right off there. And the shift lever does not move. When we picked this thing up, the tires were flat, but they're holding air. They have been at least for a couple days. Let's see what's in the back here. A couple rags and a rope. It is a shaft drive, so that's nice. It's not independent. It's a solid axle though. There's our battery. Let's check the oil. Man, that looks about brand new oil. I don't think this unit has many hours on it. Man, I love that blue color. Such a nice color. I'm gonna let it dry off. Let's see if we can get this air filter cover open. There's two. There's three. There we go. And that's about what I had expected. A little bit of mouse nest. This metal screen on here is what saved that carburetor and engine, hopefully. If it wasn't for that screen, they would have been able to get through. Now I want to get this air box out of here because they definitely built a nest up in the frame here where the air gets sucked in. to pop this tire off to make it easier to get to the battery. I'm not even gonna try and save this battery. You can see it's cracked there and was leaking out acid, and it's missing one of the caps. I do have this battery, but let's see if we even need it, because I'm gonna put it at the booster pack on, but let's see if it cranks over first. I'm just gonna use the booster pack. Come with a key, but I found this one and it makes it go on. Our neutral light is on, that's a good sign. Let's see, run. Where's the start button? Well, the relay clicks. And I can hear the starter engaging. This motor might be locked up. I don't know if you guys can see that, but we get about 6 volts. So we probably aren't getting a good ground somewhere, but the engine still should try and crank over at least. And that's not good. Rust on the spark plug. So I just looked in that cylinder with the bore scope. Here's what it looked like. You can see the one intake valve is open and it has some rust on it. The good news is the cylinder walls look pretty clean. The top of the piston has some corrosion on it, but I'm more concerned about the cylinder walls. Some PV blaster in. Fill it all the way. In the intake. Don't be shy. Now I'm going to pop off this cover, and the flywheel should be behind here, but it is going to drain out oil. At least I think it should drain out oil. I'm going to use one of these impact drivers. If you don't have one of these, you ought to get one. Well, I was wondering why they had that rope in the toolbox there. Guess if you take this cover off, you can pull start it. A lot of corrosion. Well, this isn't good. That's just loosening the crank bolt. That's just tightening it. Wailed on it a couple times. We do have a hard spot though. I wonder if it's getting bound up with the starter. I'm gonna take the starter off. I just broke all these loose with the impact driver. I don't see any damage on the starter. So the motor still won't move, but got this pulley off and I broke loose all of these bolts holding this stator cover on. So hopefully we can see something behind here. I think that something is getting jammed up on the flywheel with the starter because it spun really good and then it just stopped. I did have to use the Dremel for this one. That head was all stripped out.
From the 1980s. It's not impossible. All right, see you later.
So this is just an idler gear and it looks good. Oh, that's gonna break the case. I got this cover off and I put a pipe wrench on this part of this pulley that doesn't contact anything. And now we're spinning until it gets tight. So it goes until it gets tight. Got some acetone and ATF. So I had the acetone and ATF soaking in the engine for a while, and I spun the crankshaft back and forth, and I could not get it to break through that tight spot. It just kept reaching that one point, and it would stop. You could go back, and it would stop. So I decided the head's gonna have to come off, so I could either hone the cylinder out or replace it. So now I'm popping the plastics off because you have to remove the gas tank to get to that head. So one of the nice things about this four-wheeler is it's super easy to work on, but I'll still talk through a little bit what I did to get this head off. First, I took off the plastics, obviously, and that exhaust pipe. Now I'm popping off the bracket that holds the engine to the top of the frame. And then you can pop the camshaft gear off. Don't lose that keyway little pin. And now I'm trying to get the timing chain tensioner out. All of the bolts on this were really stuck, but heat is a really effective way to loosen those steel bolts in aluminum housings. There's the tensioner, and then you want to be really careful not to drop the timing chain down into the engine. So I usually put a little piece of wire, as you can see there, through the chain, and that prevents it from falling down. And now loosen up the head bolts evenly, and then it has those two Allen bolts that hold this side of the head down on the timing chain side, and then the head comes right off. Now you're probably wondering why I don't just take the whole cylinder off, and it's because I don't want to break these bolts. So originally I was just going to hone this cylinder out and throw it back together once the engine spun over 360 degrees, because there's those two bolts that hold the cylinder down that looked like they would break off and it would be a nightmare, but I ended up changing my mind. But I did get the engine to spin over. So the more I think about this, it's only these two bolts. They're going to be hard to get out, but I think if I don't take those off, we run the risk of the rings being seized, and it'll just burn oil and not really run well. And then also this fitting here, that's a breather for the transmission, is corroded off. So I need to get that out. Luckily it was corroded over, so nothing could get in the transmission. And wow, you can see the bottom of that is in pretty much perfect condition. And here's the main reason I did this. See that oil ring is moving around. The other two rings are seized in there. So I'm going to get this piston off here. So you can see, even though those rings are technically the right size, in order for them to seal properly, they actually have to spin while the engine is running. And when they're seized there, they're not going to scrape all the oil off the cylinder, and it's going to burn oil and lack compression. There we go. Well, I've got some parts in. Battery, oil filter, carb, air filter, and the gasket kit. So I'm going to get started and put this stator cover on, because I can put that on before putting the cylinder on. Should have drained the oil from the start, but I also didn't film cleaning up the engine. I cleaned all the gasket surfaces, and my dad and I wire brushed the whole frame to repaint the rusty spots. Looks like this is just a screen. And looks like the screen is not very dirty at all. The oil filter's probably behind this cover. There's the filter. It's less of a filter and more of just a fine screen. But there is some debris on there, but it is actually pretty clean. Actually, that is not clean, but the filter's doing what it should do. Got this cover cleaned up and the gear for the starter installed. Also got the stator on this half of the cover cleaned up, and got that plug that lets you see the timing mark, got it removed. Here's the gasket kit. It's an Athena brand or manufactured, and I'm very pleased with the quality of this. You can see it even has that rubber layer on top in some parts, and that helps grip the case so it's less likely for the gasket to get blown out. Also came with a nice head gasket that goes for the jug, but this head gasket is nice multi-layer steel. So let's get this cover installed. I'm not going to use any sealant on this, just the gasket, because I know that it's probably going to have to take this off in the future. These gaskets weren't too expensive either. I should have probably just got a new stator for it. I still need to get some new hardware, but I'll put in the bolts that are good for now. Put a tiny dab of anti-seize to help with the next time this has to come off. I need to clean off this burr here. But let's just make sure, yeah, we can still spin the engine over. Here's the new oil screen. This is a K&N brand. This is a nice quality, and you can reuse these because you can just blow them out. So don't forget your O-ring there. I have to get a cotter pin for that. Just picked up a bunch of hardware at the store. So here's the last bolt, or the last screw for the stator cover. Brand new stainless metric. A lot of hardware stores don't have much metric hardware, but luckily the one near me does. Here's the new cylinder slash jug, whatever you want to call it, and piston. Amazon special. Even comes with a spark plug. I got a new NGK one though. So wrist pin clips, piston, looks the same. The top of the piston's a little bit different actually. So our rings and the cylinder. Looks pretty much the same. 229 cc's. 223. So I guess we got 6 more cc's of displacement. Just out of nowhere, I guess. Well, I guess our bore is a little bit bigger. See, that fits there. Here's the Athena gasket, and here's the kit that came with the cylinder. I think I'm going to use these ones. Yeah, so this is a multi-layer steel. This has some steel in the gasket, and then it still has that rubber molded on top of it. Put the wavy ring on first. I think they don't want this overlapped. Oops. Next is our scraper ring. You're gonna want, there's a little groove that you want on the bottom. Also the letters will be facing the bottom, I think. And then the compression ring. I guess the letters also face down on it. Now I'm going to install one of the clips here. Make sure you get it all the way in the groove there. Make sure the arrow's facing exhaust. And got a little assembly lube on the wrist pin. And don't forget the other C-clip. Do not drop that in the engine. Get it clicked in. A little bit of oil. I guess this is hydraulic oil, but it's a
the same stuff. Gasket. Oops.
You want this in here?
Two brand new screws. Alright, I got the head gasket on there. The other dowel pin stuck in the old cylinder, and I kind of messed it up taking it out, so we're just going to use one dowel pin. And we've got this rubber, that rubber kind of rectangular O-ring goes there. Since this engine's a single overhead cam, timing is pretty simple. There's a T in there on the flywheel that you get lined up in that hole. Then line this where the dowel pin is on the cam with that notch on the head. Then install your cam sprocket. And don't forget this pin. Do not drop this pin. Double check our pin there is facing the top. The flywheel's on T. And you're going to want to torque this down. That's good. Got two new bolts for the tensioner. With the tensioner installed, you pop this little tab out. And it should tension your chain. Yeah. Well, the throttle cable is rusted in half. I guess that's why it wasn't working, so I'm gonna have to get a new one of those. In the meantime, I'll just do some other little stuff. So it's the next day. I don't have a new throttle cable. Here's the end of this one that's rusted off. So I just crimped the end of a butt connector on there, cut it shorter, and that should work, at least for now, enough to test it. So this fits right like that, holds on pretty tight. Just like that. Let's get this installed. Got the throttle cable installed, and you can see the slide there working. Alright, I got a temporary fuel tank here. We should have fuel. Got the spark plug in, spark. Hopefully we have timing and compression. Got the booster pack hooked up, so let's see if it starts. to smoke out the garage too much. We do have the fan here going. But now I can, I just wanted to make sure it would run. Now we can start just throwing everything back on. My paint guy did these tires. I just used this metallic Gold Rush. Alright, now we can get the tires installed. Almost done. Got to get the handlebar guard on. Let's see. Alright, there we go. I feel like this isn't right. I don't think there should be that big gap up there. So I did let the engine run for about half an hour just to break in, and then I drove it around the house just a little bit, and now I'll fill it all the way up with gas and we can take it for its maiden voyage. Alright, hopefully that riding footage turned out well. So I'm pretty much done with this for now. You know that I'm in college, and I was just working on this over spring break, and I have to go back tomorrow, so this is all I'm gonna get to. I would like to maybe get the front brakes working. I would like to change out the cable for this brake because it's completely seized. Obviously needs a new throttle cable. Could use some new handle grips as well, and a couple other small things. Maybe I'd put on some LED headlight bulbs. But other than that, this is a win. We'll see how long this Amazon special cylinder and piston last, but I think this turned out really well. It obviously did not have too many miles on it, even when I got it. I think the people that I got it from kind of mostly had it in their garage. This thing would have been in perfect condition if the mice hadn't got to it. But the mice destroy everything, at least where I am, but I think they do everywhere. So it looks like they're cleaning the trails here. I clean them up sometimes, but I don't think they'd be too happy if they saw me, so I'm gonna get out of here.